Gents, I just want to pause the episode for a moment to let you know about the Strong Men of Value Academy. You will have heard me refer to it a number of times, and I want to bring more attention to it. So this isn't just a program, it's a life-changing environment and community of men who are focused on personal and professional growth. We're looking at areas of relationships, wealth, and health, things to help you thrive and maximize your life. Imagine having bi-monthly one-on-one coaching sessions with myself, weekly group coaching calls, and an incredible brotherhood of high achievers by your side. Now, we're diving into resilience, leadership, and holistic growth to not just succeed in your career, but to thrive in your health and your relationships. Your journey to greatness, it starts here. So join the movement and you can apply for the Strong Men of Value Academy. You can head to themanthatcanproject.com to find out more. Today, I have a very inspiring guest, someone that I have been following online since around 2018, James Lawrence, the Iron Cowboy. Welcome.
Thank you, Lockie. Excited to be here, and hopefully we say something that resonates with every member of the listening audience today.
I definitely know we will. You are such an inspiring individual. I remember it was around 2018, I was watching the Barkley Marathon documentary on YouTube, and then all of a sudden you popped up in the side, trending videos or recommended videos. And I was like, I'll check this out. And firstly, I was like, that's not possible, because the 50-50-50 is the video that popped up for those who aren't familiar. And that was 50 full-length Ironman in 50 days across 50 states. And what you didn't put in the title was that your family would be traveling with you at the same time. So I'm watching this, I'm like, nah, I can't even, traveling with my wife, we get along like a house on fire, but it's challenging. And you've got your family doing this, and you're doing a rigorous exercise like an Ironman. And for those who don't know what it is, I've converted this to miles, but it's a 2.4 mile swim, a 112 mile bicycle ride, and a marathon to finish it off. So 26.2 miles every day for 50 days with the travel. So I was sitting there going, it's not possible. Like, I can't imagine how that's possible. And then
it's interesting for us to look back on it, because that was in 2015, and it's fun now because my oldest daughter at the time was just 12, and my youngest was 5, and just crazy to think 5 kids that age in that type of environment on that kind of adventure. And to look back on it now, we just married off Lucy, who was the 12-year-old who is now 21, and my youngest, which was 5, is now 14. And so it's just really, really fun to have included the kids in that journey, to watch the lessons that they pulled from it and then applied them in their lives and who they've now become because of these things that we do. So it's just really been the gift that we were given that we never expected to be part of this project or the projects or the adventure.
It's very inspiring to see that you've managed to do that and bring your family along. A lot of men that I work with and have seen, they sacrifice family life, and whether they're aware of it or not, in the pursuit of success, whether that's financial or climbing the corporate ladder. And you've been successful in your career. You're a speaker, you're a successful family man, and you're breaking world records left, right, and center. How was it that or what inspired you to redefine impossible?
Yeah, I think initially, there's so many different facets to our story and reasons why we do this. And it kind of all came to a head when the economic crash happened in '08. And I owned a mortgage company at the time. I was living that American dream, entrepreneur, which I am. I'm a serial entrepreneur, as we'll probably discuss in this podcast. But we lost everything, and I had a passion for racing, and also I always loved to figure out ways to give back. It's interesting. Just finished watching a Netflix on documentary about centurions and the highest population of people that lived over 100, and they compared all these different areas, and then pulled in the commonalities from all these areas. And it was interesting to recognize that one of the things that was common between all of these different parts of the world that had this high concentration was service. And so I thought that was fascinating, because we always tie these big projects to service to other people that are less fortunate than we are. And so this whole thing started by us trying to make an impact, raise money. The first world record we did was in 2010. and it was the most half Ironmans done, all official races on the circuit. And we did it to raise money to build dams in Africa, and we called it the Try and Give a Dam project.
Right.
So that's really how it started. Was like we lost everything in the economy. I had a passion for racing, and I was building a new coaching business, and just it's spiraled out of control to open doors and avenues that we never dreamt would be possible.
What made you pivot though? Because the instant thought for me was if I was to lose everything in 2008, I would just try and find another job and just grind harder. But you essentially jumped out and pursued something that maybe even in 2008 probably wasn't financially lucrative and you had a family. So what was it that pushed you in that direction?
Yeah, it's interesting. I absolutely hate the term burn the ships. I think it's just the worst advice that people get, and they get fired up. And the massive disservice that social media is doing that glamorizes entrepreneurship. What people are doing is they get this belief that they need to like quit their day job and chase a side hustle. And it's so wrong in terms of mentality. You have to chase that dream and burn the candle at both ends for a short period of time. And you keep your day job because it puts food on the table. I hope I'm not going contrary to what your messaging
No,
normally
no, no,
is.
no. This is on par.
But what it was for me is, my ships were burnt for me. Like we got attacked. We got bombed. All my warships got sunk. And so I saw it as an opportunity where I didn't have to make that choice. And we were at rock bottom, and we now had an opportunity to create and chase that side hustle. Now, I don't want people to misunderstand that that was the only thing I did was that hustle. Dude, I took every odd end job at the lowest part of the economy. I was hanging construction cabinets and new construction houses at night while I was training in the day. My wife was in school full time. We had the five little kids. I was doing sales jobs as much like we were grinding, but we also prioritized put food on the table. And then we chased the dream. And so it was kind of in this position where I was like, do whatever I can for money, because we're scrappers, we're fighters, and build that dream on the other side of it. And so, man, it was a 24-hour a day pursuit. But what was fascinating is, crisis will either drive a wedge between a couple or it'll bring you closer together. And with us, it brought us closer together because we were like, okay, we just lost everything. Like they literally knocked on our door, took away our home, repoed our cars. Like we had nothing. We were broke and homeless. And it was like, okay, now what? And we were like, okay, you do this hustle, I'll do this hustle, we'll make sure food's on the table. Okay, like literally my kids were in the front room sleeping in front of a fire that I went and got coal from a coal mine so that I wouldn't have to wake up, or I was on a job site so that the coal would burn all night long and I didn't have to restock it with wood. Like people don't understand sacrifice and really going after something because it takes a long time to build an empire. And it's so funny. We just had a meeting with our financial advisor, and my wife and I, when the meeting was done, and we were looking at our portfolio and our investments and things that we have, and she was like, "I hope you recognize and can pat yourself on the back for the work that you've done over the past decade to put us in this position." And I think we're going on tons of tangents here, but I think again this toxic social media entrepreneurship wave of glory and glamour. They don't realize it takes a decade, man. And I love where Alex Hormozy says like the more patient you can be and the longer you can wait, the more you'll be wealthy. And for us, that was so true. Like man, we were broke for a decade. But I was okay with that because I knew the long-term vision, and I knew what if I was patient and I just kept doing the work, one day that domino effect would happen and then it's turned into an avalanche. And so, but there's the problem is most people aren't willing to wait for the avalanche fall. And by burning your ships, like we talked about at the beginning, they become desperate and decisions are emotionally driven. And when that happens, you are screwed and you quickly run out of time, money, and assets. And then guess what? You got to go back to your dumbass job anyway, so you might as well keep it.
It's an intelligent way of looking at it. And I believe there's always like something that has to happen first to do it. And everyone's tolerance to risk or stress, which is one of the messages I know that you promote about doing hard things. And that's relative to the individual. But for you guys in 2008, like I was still at school then, but that would have been some heavy stuff to deal with. Why do you feel that yourself and your wife, Sunny, didn't bicker, like didn't turn in on each other, which seems to be a common thing within relationships?
Yeah, bickering, fear, and anger serves zero purpose, and it's completely non-productive. And so if you find yourself in that situation, you have to question and say, how is this benefiting the situation at all? It's not moving the needle forward. It's actually hurting the needle from moving, and you're either staying stagnant or moving, in fact, moving backwards. And so, we recognize that life is going to happen, good, bad, ugly, indifferent, and you now get to choose how you navigate that. And again, fear and negativity and bickering halts progress. And we both recognize that. And we're like, okay, we have choices to make here. And we can either do that or we can band together, join forces, and be a powerful duo that just plows forward without any excuses and not allowing that moment to define us. Guarantee you can look around and there's still victims from the '08 economic crash. There's
Mm.
still victims from the pandemic wipeout. Like it happened to all of us. Like we were all living and present when that happened and it impacted us all. And so you can either choose to be a victim or a victor. And we chose to be victors. And there's still people that are living in a victim mentality, woe is me mindset. And guess what? Good luck in life.
What would your advice be to someone who's sitting in that? Maybe they've just recognized now that they are in that victim mindset, but they want to go to the victim mindset. What would be some things that you would do?
Yeah, you immediately have to recognize that your past doesn't define your future and you can't change it. And if you don't like your environment or what you're experiencing right now, you have to first figure out the outcome or the possible outcome that you want, and then figure out what it's going to take to be that individual. Like let's say you want to be in better shape. Okay, you look at someone that's in shape, what do? They go to the gym. Great. You don't have a gym membership? Go get one. A healthy person also has good eating habits. Great. You have shitty eating habits. Okay, what do I need to do in order to do that? It's not rocket science anymore. Like we are in the information age. If you're using lack of like knowledge as an inhibitor, like you're a dumbass. Like I have very low tolerance for individual. It's just excuses after excuses after excuses. So someone that's like, oh, maybe I am being a victim and I'd like to be a victor. Great. What's the outcome you want? And then start acting like the person that's going to have that. You're not going to change. It's not fake it till you make it. It's like start being the person until you develop those habits. And I heard the other day, and it was so freaking brilliant. It was like you get to choose to be happy, and people will push back like, "No, I just can't decide to be happy one day." And no, you're right, you can't. But you can change the activities that you're doing on a daily basis that'll lead to your happiness. Nothing happens like this and overnight. Like people just like, I'm so freaking tired of people like, I want it right now. Great, you're 23. Shut the hell up. You don't get it right now. You've got to make a lot of sacrifices in order to get there. I'm so tired of this like mentality of I want it right now and entrepreneurship's easy. Dude, like I heard a stat the other day. I think it was like 7% of people that start entrepreneurship like make it past the first year, and then like 1% of that 7% actually make it. It was a
Wow.
brilliant podcast by Ed Milet and Andy Frisella, two buddies of mine. And it's just like every word they said resonated with me. And I'm like, finally, somebody actually that's done the entrepreneurship road, speaking truths about it and like discrediting every like 20 something ever online that's like, I made $7 million with a side hustle. No, you didn't.
I love that. It was something I was listening to a podcast of yours this morning where you were really diving into the eliminate excuses and entitlement. And it was a note that I'd written down because how you spoke about it was phenomenal. And going back through COVID and a lot of hardships, it's like people just want the thing now. They have this idea that they want the 7 million bucks or they want the good body, but they aren't prepared to do the stuff day in, day out.
Well, and here's the thing, like I know your audience is a little bit older, and there's going to be people that are listening that are like, okay, I'm out of shape, and it took me 15, 20 years to get here. And then for some reason we expect to reverse a decade worth of poor decisions to happen in 1, 2, or 3 months. But the reality is like your mind and your body don't trust you yet. And you haven't been consistent and disciplined for long enough. It's like a career criminal that like finally gets caught and he goes to prison and in his first month he's like, man, I am really sorry for what I did. and I'd like to be let out of prison at this point. And we're like, no, we don't trust you yet. We need you to sit there a little bit longer, right? And that's what's happening with our mind and our body. We've beat ourselves up for a long period of time, mentally, emotionally, physically, for 10, 15, 20 years. And then we're like, okay, I've made a change. I've been good for 1 month. But your mind's like, I don't trust that you're going to be good until it holds on to those emotions and that weight and that and the way that we think. And I like to call it invisible progress, because we have to continually do the work so that our body and our mind slowly go, okay, I'm starting to trust that this is the new you, but I still need proof. And then it takes time and time again. I just don't understand why people think it took 20 years to get to this place and I can reverse it in 1 to 3 months.
Why do you feel, or what would
Man,
your,
we came out of the gates hot.
I know it's awesome though. I'm loving it. But it's with like someone who's in that going through that process and they're like, oh, it's a motivation. I really lack motivation. I do want to change, but it's cold outside this morning, or there was some lamingtons or brownies left in the fridge. What would you say to those people?
It's so funny. Joe Rogan, he says a lot of fun stuff, but he's like, F your motivation, because it has nothing to do with motivation. And even the guys that you see that are winning, dude, they're not motivated. They're just disciplined. They do it when they don't want to. They do it when it's inconvenient. You just have to start to create wins and momentum. Again, what a lot of people do and they misstep is they set a goal, it's too big, and then they try to figure out how to go from couch to 100, meaning 100 Ironmans, which we did. But you can't go from 0 to 100. You have to start to put yourself in a position to where you start to believe and that the success is happening. Like success, it creates success, and momentum is momentum. All these things have to happen in sequential order. And what people need to do is they need to just start accumulating really small wins. One of my favorite books, and it's a massive #1 seller, is James Clear, Atomic Habits. When he talks about a guy that wanted to lose weight, and he sets this huge goal, 6 days a week, 2 hours a day in the gym. But the reality was, he said, no, his mentor said, no, go to the gym for 5 minutes. When 5 minutes is up, leave. And he's like, dude, I'm not going to accomplish anything in 5 minutes. And he's like, you're right, you're not. But we have to fix your mind before we can fix your body. And he started to go to the gym for 5 minutes a day. And he had to leave after those 5 minutes. But over the first week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, what did he become? He became a gym goer, which now changes the psychology in your mind that you're now a gym goer. Those are small, tiny wins that shifts in the long term. But again, people are running to victories and mountaintops before they are understanding how to navigate base camp, how to adjust to the elevation changes, how to really tweak my equipment, get my ligaments and tendons to match the growth rate of my muscles. Right? All these things are happening that we're missing. And it's truly about those small moments along the way. Those are the most important moments and will allow you to win in the long term.
Such an important thing that I hope a lot of people really soak up, because yeah, everyone just wants to. Even for me, when I saw your 50/50, I was like, man, I can do that. And I was like, then I thought about it logically. I was like, there's no way on earth I could do that, especially when you talk about the ligament stuff. No, I hadn't
Okay,
done
okay,
that.
but here's the reality. I've had epigenetic tests done. I've had everything done. There's no major marker that separates me from anybody else. You are just like me, and I'm just like you. The difference is I started with a 4 mile fun run, and then I did sprint triathlons, and then I did Olympics, and then I did a half, and then I did the half Ironmans, and then only then, after years, did I be like, okay, I think I'm ready to tackle a full. And then I did it. But people wake up to get motivated, inspired, and like, I signed up for an Ironman. And then you're like, what? You have no business doing an Ironman. Like your experience is going to be shit. Like you have to go back and start those foundational building blocks. So I just want you to be careful in the language that you use in terms of like you couldn't do that. You can, you just have to be willing to sacrifice what it takes in order to do it. And most people don't understand the time frame. The goal is great, but you have to respect the distance between the goal and the objective. And that's where most people misstep, because they go from goal to massive or start to massive dream, and then they fail because they try to sprint to it. And now what happens after they do that multiple times is now they start to associate themselves with a failure. It's the opposite of going to the gym five minutes a day. They're doing the opposite effect. They keep failing and they're not learning. And so now they believe they're a failure, and that leads to stopped trying, and now they're stuck.
So to overcome that association of failure, you would then go back to building the small wins, finding those small wins, whether it's a 4 mile fun run and building off of that. And as you said, respecting the process and just playing the long-term game, being patient.
Everything is a long-term game. Trust me, everybody listening, there is no magic bullet. There's no secret pill. There's no secret sauce. It just doesn't exist. It's only through hard work, dedication, and discipline. And like Joe Rogan says, man, motivation's crap. I hate that I'm in the motivational speaking category on stage because it's not what I am. In fact, I'm trying to get people to say I'm an empowering speaker because motivation is a fleeting thought that leads to nothing. I want to empower you to the point that you take action and make change in your life. That to me is a big difference. I'm an empowering speaker, not a motivational speaker.
That's epic. Where did the idea then come from, the 50-50-50? I know we've jumped out of the gates with a lot of things that help people within their life. But for you personally, I'd love to dive into that 50-50-50 because and just quickly, for those who haven't watched the documentary, go watch the documentary. I've watched it on YouTube. You can rent it and buy it and do all that sort of stuff on YouTube, but even from your website.
It's also on Amazon Prime and it's on Peacock.
Yeah. So
and Apple TV.
It will blow your mind, and then you'll probably want to come back and listen to this again. But where did the idea come from? Because to me, it's I know it would have been, once again, that big brick by brick process for you to get there, but 50-50-50, share where that came from.
Yeah, and I think that's the problem too, is people see the headline not knowing the history. And then again, it motivates people and it gets people off the couch to do things, but it leads to some other problems. And so I think it's important to understand one's history. And like I said, my journey started with a 4 mile fun run that led to sprint triathlons, that led to falling in love with the community, that led to half Ironmans, that led to a single first Ironman. And it was an amazing experience. I fell in love with, again, the community and the challenge of learning swimming, biking, running, strength training, nutrition, mental toughness. Like it's not a triathlon, it's a 6 discipline sport. And to me that was fascinating. And I loved like trying to break all of those down. And the variety of the training was amazing. And I was doing it with my wife, and our kids were we were growing this little family. And it was just it was a really cool time in our lives. And then again, we lost everything in the economy and went to do a big give back through a passion. And we were raising money to build dams in Africa for that first world record. And then it led to the second world record, which was the most Ironmans done around the world, 30 events through 11 countries, smashed the world record by 1/3. And then it's always interesting, and this is a point that I really want to drive home with people, is you can't see the next mountain or challenge until you're ready for it. And people currently are sitting at home playing video games, watching porn and eating pizza, waiting for their passion to knock on their door and slap them across the face. It just doesn't work that way. You have to go out and do things, and then all of a sudden you're like, holy crap, this is amazing. I'm having experiences in life. And as you start to climb mountains, you're like, wow, I've changed. I have a different experience base. My knowledge is different. I now believe more is possible. In fact, I can see a mountain that I couldn't see before because now I'm on top of this mountain. And so when we finished that world record in 2012, I was about race 27 of 30 in that campaign. I was actually just finished race 27. I was in Arizona at a buddy's house. I looked at my wife and I said, "Hey, you know that story of Dean Karnazes who did 50 marathons in 50 days in 50 states?" And she was like, "Yes." And I was like, "What do you think would happen if we did that with an Ironman?" And she pretty much slapped me across the face, told me to shut the hell up, and my timing was terrible because we were in the middle of our second world record. But it planted a seed, and I believe that more is possible at that point based on what we've been experiencing. And for the next 2.5 years, I started to put together the 50. Because I watched Dean and what it did with his career and the opportunities and doors that it opened. And I always like try to take what somebody's done with a marathon and then do it with an Ironman. Because our race has a marathon in it, but there's a significant amount of work that goes before that marathon happens. And so just really started to piece it together, and it became this like passion for me. And my kids were little, ages 5 to 12. And wanted to, again, have impact and raise money for the childhood obesity epidemic. And at the time, this was the statistic that this is the first generation ever where the parents are slated to outlive the kids. And I was like, that sucks. I got 5 kids. I'm not, having them die before me. And I want to do what I can to help other people not be in that situation. And so that became part of this campaign, was to try to drive home education and raise funds for that. And then we went on an incredible adventure the summer of 2015, where we tackled, like you said, 50 Ironmans, 50 days, 50 states. They were our own curated events that we had to put on, so logistically really heavy. Started in Hawaii, did an Ironman, flew to Alaska, did an Ironman, flew to Washington, did an Ironman, all piled into a motorhome, and just started to navigate the lower 48. Averaged less than 4 hours of sleep a night, consumed more than 10,000 calories a day, and was met every single day with absolute chaos and confusion.
That's what blew my mind, was how you were pushing yourself to the limits and you didn't appear to snap. I know when people are really, you're chasing greatness, you're redefining impossible, you have to be hitting a threshold to some point. And a lot of people, when they hit thresholds, whether it's through COVID or losing their job or even physically, there's a snapping point. And you and your family and the support team that you had around seemed to juggle that, or just support each other so well, to the point where it just worked. And what's the secret there?
Yeah, I mean, we definitely had breaking points, but I think the secret to that, and I shout this from the rooftops, nothing great is ever accomplished on our own. And I can't go out there on my own and do these kind of things. And I need an unbelievable team. And my team for the 50 was like my wife, Sunny, my 5 kids, and then two friends that we called the wingmen, Casey and Aaron. And really it became me, Sunny, Casey, and Aaron were the lead of this thing. And we really had to lean on each other, trust each other. We the four of us, just we do not make excuses. We are not entitled, and we do what it takes. Now don't misunderstand that none of us had moments, because we allowed each other to have those moments. Nobody's perfect. We all need those moments to process. But we also believe in having quick turnarounds and not allowing ourselves to spiral. And excuse me, and every single one of us had that moment where we're like, okay, I'm backed into a corner right now, emotionally, physically, spiritually. I just need 5 minutes to reset. I'm going to go over here. I'm going to cry. I'm gonna toss and turn. I'm going to piss and moan, and then I'm going to be right back. And we allowed each other to do that. And the purpose of a team is the chances of all four of you doing it at the same time are very rare. And we all had the mindset that when one person was doing that, we don't jump in and all get on a pity party together, because that's what you're starting to see, right? You see people that are struggling get together and then really commiserate together, and then now you're spiraling as two of you, and then two more people come aboard. Now you got four of you spiraling and just being toxic together. And we just we're not tolerant of any of that type of behavior and attitudes. And we just got really, fortunate with the mindset of our team. We all share that same mindset of like, okay, we're gonna have moments where we need to pause, take a deep breath, but we're gonna get right back at it.
Was
And none of us make excuses. And we all understood that in order for something like this to work, you just have to adapt the mindset of being a master problem solver.
was that something you established before you kicked off, to have those boundaries in place? Because I just know for me, when emotions are high, my intellect is extremely low. And sometimes I can say things I'll regret. Or for me, I would just feel the need that I would have to have those conversations before I even kicked it off. Because as you said, you can congregate and have the whole team spiraling down. So to have people who can lift you up and sort of break those patterns, was that forward thinking, or was that just the kind of people that you are?
I think it's both. It's the kind of people we are. We resonate with each other. My wife and I, Sunny, we set that standard from the start. Like we'd learned from the '08 crash and doing the first two world records, like that is how it has to operate in order for you to be successful. And if you want to be on this team, you have to have that mindset. And then we're big, and this is something I teach from stages, is like and at our retreats, is you have to have what's called an ethos. And an ethos is what you stand for, black and white. Because when you get into that moment of peak exhaustion, fatigue, confusion, chaos, it's really hard to make the right decision. And so you have to go into a situation knowing what the line is in the sand, how you're going to act, and what the answer is to those questions, so that it's already predetermined. And then everybody needs to know what that is. So it's your mission statement, it's your grounding principles, it's how you operate, it's your book of operating skill sets. And so for us, we knew what those were. We discussed them pre, and we knew what the outcome and objective was. And anything that didn't align with our ethics and values or the outcome, it wasn't even on the table. And so we knew what that was. It was predetermined. And so anytime we were confronted with a moment where we were so filled with emotion, we were just like, okay, we're going to pause. We're going to remove the emotion. Let's go back to our ethos. What does it say? Okay, great. There's the answer. That's what we're doing.
It's genius. Like it, for me, hearing stuff like that, it was such a struggle for me in my own life to be able to learn to set those boundaries and have those conversations. I didn't grow up with people around me who could communicate that well or hold, harness those conversations. So when I see people who just do that and are able to set ethos and set boundaries and have their standards, I'm blown away, and I'm really intrigued with how that came into their life. Because for me, it was through reading books and hanging around people who I guess have the results, but from, I guess I'm trying to pay it forward to when I have children and the next generations to actually just provide those spaces for people. So I'm always curious as to how that comes to people's life, because I still think from a lot of my experiences, not enough people are doing that in their relationships, in their careers, with the people that they surround themselves with. So it's cool to hear that. And once again, as you guys would have heard, James said he's got his coaching programs where I'm sure he dives into that a whole heap more, plus speaking from stage as well. Throughout the 50, there was controversy. Oh, sorry.
Real quick, like, let me ask you a question. When in the history of decisions was a good decision ever made in the peak of chaos and emotion? Yeah, never.
Yeah.
Never, never, never is the answer. I mean, rare if it happens, it's probably by luck. But I just started watching successful people and mentors, and I recognized that they were prepared for moments. They had predetermined the outcome, and then they were doing whatever it took to reach that objective. But they would pause and remove that emotion. And you hear the old adage of like, you are the five people you surround yourself most, and they've now narrowed that down to like, really it's the three people. And so we'll call it 3 to 5. And there's going to be some people on this call where it's like, well, I live in a small town, I don't have access to people. No, man, your 5 people can be people you don't even know. And there's so many great thought leaders out there now that we have access to on social media and on YouTube and all these amazing platforms. They can be your 3 to 5 people, and those top leaders, man, they share everything they do, and you can start to observe them and dissect what they're doing. They don't even need to know that they're your 3 to 5 people. It can be you and your online homies. You know what I mean? And you just start to watch them, emulate them. You want to be them, you got to do the things that they're doing. And again, it's not fake it till you make it. It's do the activities and instill the habits that they're doing until you become that person. And this whole podcast started with a rant about you no longer have an excuse, because we're in the age of information, and you can emulate the people that you want to be until you become that person. And again, it's not fake it till you make it. It's changing the activities, actions that you're taking on a daily basis until that truly becomes who you are.
Doing the hard things that you've continued to build layer by layer, and even for the individuals who are now starting to think maybe I do want to challenge myself, has that helped you with making better decisions in those tough moments as well?
I mean, yeah, 100%. You at any point in time, when you're in a moment, you have to look at your body of work. What have I done? What experiences can I draw upon to get through this moment? And if you never intentionally do hard things, you don't have a body of work to draw upon. And when real life happens to you, you're going to turn into a pile of mush and you're going to fail. Like if you were to come to a family of function at our house with our kids, man, it is loaded with sarcasm and off-color jokes and frankly, bullying inside of our house. And all my kids participate in it, and we do it to ourselves. And it is a ton of, and it's like we're ready for the real world. Like, I am not worried about my kids going to the real world and into a workplace or a social environment or whatnot where people are frankly ruthless. And if you're sheltering your children or not exposing them to the realities of this world, when they step out of your home and into the real world, someone's going to say something to them. And if they're not ready for it and don't have a thick skin and can't handle sarcasm or jokes or whatever is being placed in front of them, they are going to turn into a pile of mush. And my kids are going to be like, dude, what? You're not even gonna give me a yo mama joke? Like what do we right? So like everyone's just getting so soft and so hypersensitive. Like I'm doing the opposite with my kids. Like I'm getting them ready for the real world.
Yeah, it's a shame to see the way, once again, media is portraying these conversations. Obviously, every town and environment's got different ways of thinking about it, but the media is definitely with this cancel culture and coddling and all of that sort of stuff. But the reality is life's hard. Like, it's enjoyable, it's fun, but there's tough shit that happens. And doing stuff that you do, and for every individual finding those challenges in their own life to prepare themselves for maybe people disagree with them, the jokes or the physical challenges. It's like you just learn to deal with it, and the only way you can do that is by challenging yourself physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, all of those ways. It's growth.
Well, and that's the greatest gift anybody can give themselves or become, is to be comfortable with who you are and not care what anybody else thinks. Because at the end of the day, those are just projections from other people.
Mm.
And if I don't care what you think, like that doesn't affect me. Like there's a great book, The Subtle Art of Not Giving an F, by Mark
Manson.
Manson. I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mark Manson. Dude, it's a really great read. In fact, I think every young person should read it because everybody right now is so busy caring about what everybody else thinks. It's crippling you from progress. It's paralyzing you with fear because you're so consumed with what everybody's like talking about and telling you about you. Dude, the greatest gift is to not care what anybody else thinks. And as soon as you can get to that point, like that's when freedom happens. That's when you're free to operate and be who you are, and
Mm.
not really be consumed with what whoever else is thinking. Like I wouldn't have said half the stuff on this podcast already if I genuinely cared what anybody else thought. Like that's your problem. Like if I offended you, that's a you issue. Like I just don't care. And
Yeah.
it's really not me. You need to take a serious look at your life and like why did that upset me, and what experiences have I had in the past that I need to like reshape or revisit because that was upsetting to me. Like it shouldn't be upsetting to you. Like just be okay that I have my opinions and you have yours, and go navigate your life. Like it's okay. I think it's great that we have different opinions. But the way social media is and media is driving people is like we all have to agree and have the same opinion on every single thing. Sorry, folks, that's just not how the world works and operates. And and it's interesting too because media is one thing, but I think there's just a silent majority that disagrees with everything that media is saying. But there's just that culture right now is so freaking loud. Man, it's obnoxious.
Yeah, it's terrible. And you also, for me, observing, there would never be people that you want on your team to go through the hard things. If there was to be another world war or anything like that, it's like, to me, the hardship that they could deal with if they're getting so offended by words. It's like when shit really happens, and hopefully it never does, but you just think about those moments. It's it's tough, man. It's really tough.
Well,
You
the perspective I want people to have is like, and it's so hard to have this, and as I age and it becomes more and more apparent to me, but at the end of the day, none of it matters. Like it's about how you treat people. It's about the relationships that you cultivate. It's the experiences that you have. All the stuff that everyone's worrying about, it just doesn't matter, man. And the closer you can get to like not caring about all those little small things and just the stuff that doesn't matter, like you're going to be happier. People keep talking about like trying to find joy and happiness. The less you worry, the happier you'll become. I had an experience where I was on this TV show called The World's Toughest Race. It's eight, I think it's 8 or 9 episodes on Amazon Prime, but it was a navigation adventure race through the back jungles of Fiji. And what was fascinating was the further we got into the back parts of Fiji and in the jungle, the less and less they had, and the happier they were. And it was fascinating to do that. And we had to turn in all of our technology and we were unplugged from the world. And it was just amazing to be disconnected from social media and the news and all this outside noise and influence for a week and a half. And just that small period of time, how it started to change the way we were thinking, and it directly impacted our happiness level, right? And it was just so crazy to watch, like the less they had, the happier they were. And so maybe think about that for a second. Are we chasing the wrong things? Are we putting the wrong value on or in the wrong areas in our lives? Just think about that.
Yeah, I read, I think the book's called Minimalist or Minimalism or something like that, where they say that the more stuff you own, the more stuff you have to worry about. And a life of worry, as you've just said, is not a fun way to live. So think about the things that are actually truly important to you. I know through your 50-50-50, you copped criticism. And I think that probably loops back to what we were just talking about, how you learn to not, I guess, worry about other people's opinions, but it also can drive home getting clear on why you do what you do, and I guess checking yourself to make sure you're flying with integrity and all of those sorts of things. Can you talk about that experience? There was obviously the triathlons inside and the IV drips and stuff like that. I think it's important to our audience because a lot of people, as we've said, people love to comment on all kinds of stuff, and it's like they don't know the process, they don't understand why. And
Yeah.
I believe your story is so powerful with that.
Yeah, and if you want to understand a higher level what we're talking about, it's in the book Redefining Impossible, and it's in the documentary The Iron Cowboy that's on those streaming networks. But I think by going through those experiences, making those mistakes, not being perfect, executing the best we could with what we were given, we learned a ton. I learned that other people's opinions don't mean anything because it's coming from a space of lack of knowledge, having no concept of the journey that somebody else is on. And frankly, it comes from them being jealous that you're actually doing something with your life and they're not. And the power to not give them any power was the true gift. And that's really where I started to learn to not care what anybody else thought because they can't possibly have an opinion on what we're doing based on the knowledge and experience that they have. And so really that was the gift. But then it was also a moment to have that self-reflection and go, okay, how can I be better? If there's some truth in what they're saying, even though it's pointless, can I take this opportunity, take some accountability, and do it better and improve the process? Because I think that's the point in life is, I get asked all the time, what's a failure you had in your life that and I'm like, no, I don't even understand what that means. There are no failures, there's learning opportunities. And that's how you have to choose to look at it. We're not perfect. We were doing something that nobody in the world had done before, and there was no roadmap to success on this kind of thing. And so, yeah, we made mistakes. We misstepped, but we took it as an opportunity to learn and grow and to strengthen our team and to strengthen our processes and what we were doing. And I'm so grateful we just continue to make the decision to keep going and improving and being better and um, trying to find excellence in the human spirit. And because of it, it's led to other projects and hundreds of thousands of people being impacted, millions of dollars being raised. Could you imagine if I listened to
Oh
those
yeah.
those those critics back in the beginning part of my journey? I have no idea where I'd be today, but it wouldn't be here financially free and living the life of my dreams. I'll tell you that much.
Was it hard to acknowledge that? Like we've spoken a lot about ownership in the beginning. It was like accepting responsibility for the situation, especially when you've got so many eyeballs on you. Was that like what was that process like?
Yeah, it's hard. It's definitely a learning process. You have to have thick skin. You have to take everything with a grain of salt. You have to just, for me, I tell my kids, look, the cream always rises to the top. It may not be on the time frame we want it to be on, but if you just keep showing up with honesty and integrity, and you're trying to improve every single day, like just keep doing that. And the high, what's fascinating too, and this should ring true with a lot of people, the higher you get. Um, the further away from that noise you are because you can't hear them anymore and because they can't keep pace with you. And dude, we're on a rocket ship and you're either on my team and we're on the rocket ship together or you're not with us and it's okay because you're choosing not to be a passenger. And that's what's really cool. And my kids are seeing this firsthand and they're experiencing it there in their lives too. They're striving for excellence and they're starting to separate from their peers and all of a sudden you can't hear that noise anymore. And now you're starting to surround yourself with people that have that mindset for greatness and are wanting to be on the rocket ship with you. And now you become more powerful and you're bringing on the super boosters and all these things. And all of a sudden, man, it's just like the noise of awesomeness happening and the noise of greatness happening. And that's all you can hear. I don't even get distracted and I don't even hear it anymore. Like it's so comical to me at this point, that chatter. I actually feel sorry for them because they are so stuck in their pathetic ways that it's just become laughable. They're just vibrating at such a low frequency that I can't even hear it anymore.
It's a powerful place to get to. What was harder, the 101, sorry, or the 50s?
Very different projects. Although from the outside they look the same. And for those new to our journey, in 2015 we did the 50-50-50, which we've talked about. But then in 2021 we doubled it. Pandemic happened, racing was taken off the calendar, Speaking was taken off the calendar, retreats was taken off the calendar, coaching was taken, anything to do with live events, which was my entire career, was taken off the calendar. And like most people, life was put on pause. But my industry specifically was like silenced, terminated. And so I saw it as an opportunity. And so I'd always, again, I always want to improve upon the mistakes that I've made in the past. And if you read the book and watch the documentary, you'll know what I'm talking about. There's some controversy, and we made a decision to keep going, and so grateful for those decisions. Um, but I always want to learn from my mistakes and do things better. And so I thought to myself, okay, this is the opportunity. I always wanted to redo the 50. I always want to do it better, but I'm like, I don't want to do that again because I've done it. But I thought to myself, okay, that project was called Redefine Impossible. It's the name of our book. Um, if I put team, the same team back in place, if I can learn from our experience and put systems and protocols in place, if I can remove chaos, logistics, the enormity of the travel, if I can control more of the environment, could I double what everybody said was impossible? Could I defy logic? And that's why the 100 was born. One, I had an opportunity, and two, I wanted to really silence any critic that questioned what we did. And so it was a huge career gamble for me because I was betting again everything on myself and my team. And it was one thing to try to duplicate what you've already done in the past, but to double what everybody said was impossible. You talk about like belief and conviction and believing in yourself and your team. Like that's like I was really putting my entire career and 10 years worth of work on the line. And so the Conquer 100 project was born, and we did one location here in Utah, and for a quarter of a year, we did 140.6 miles a day, 14,000 plus miles. And man, did we execute to perfection. Now, I was broken physically, mentally, spiritually. I encountered some injuries early on that we couldn't have anticipated because we decided to do this project last minute. I had taken 5 years off from my peak physical condition, and I was just going to rely on my mental toughness and my experience, but it broke my body. And now I had to really rely on my mental experience and drag a broken body through 140 miles a day for a quarter of a year. And I am, man, so freaking pumped about the documentary that's coming out on March 27th, and then the release of our new book called Iron Hope. It dives so deep into the lessons that we've learned and really highlights the struggle, the teamwork, the family, and community in the new Conquer 100 documentary. It's going to be so powerful. Just really excited for the release of this year.
I'm so excited to watch it as well. I was once again that podcast I was listening to. You mentioned you were having some trouble getting the doco together, but it's good to hear that it's out on the way and another book. And for those who haven't read your first book, Redefine Impossible, Iron Cowboy, I've nearly finished it. I'll probably have finished that in the next 10 days, I'd imagine. But a brilliant read. And I believe like the documentary or the previous documentary, this just goes into so much more detail as well. Like it's really phenomenal to piece both of them together. What were some of the main differences between the 100? Because as you said, you controlled some variables, you took away some stresses, the travel and stuff like that. What were the main differences that you experienced? Because for me, once again, having not done them, and I don't feel I can truly comment, but I look at the 50 and traveling and taking your family. To me, that's just wild. To me, that's what I feel would have been harder. But I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, you nailed it, man. It became logistics and managing chaos. And then truly it was fatigue because it was so chaotic, because the enormity of the United States, because heavy travel every single day trying to get to the next state and then doing 14 plus hours of activity in the event and media and everything that surrounded it. It was exhausting, not just doing an Ironman a day, but just everything else around it. And so the 50 was chaos, confusion, fatigue, and logistics. And then the 100, just because, again, circumstances, lack of preparation, my fault, timing and everything, I got injured. And so it became like pain management and just sheer longevity of the project, because the 50 is 7 weeks, right? So that's a long time. But 14 weeks, and when you're broken, like I was broken by day 5. The swelling was incredible. I started to develop 2 stress fractures. I'm legit staring down like a double barrel shotgun, just with 95 more days to go, going, I have no idea how. And so it just became this campaign that, dude, the 100 felt like it was a decade long. It just felt so long because it it wasn't as much of a physical demand. It just became mental because I was managing such a level of pain due to the injuries. And so just being that dialed in mentally for that long period of time is just so grueling and such a demand. Like I, I had PTSD after the 100. And because there was a bike crash in there, I got knocked unconscious. I have multiple career concussions. I broke my back on day 59, cracked my L5 vertebrae in a crash. And so like the pain was just incredible. And it just seemed forever in the making. And so both projects, even though they were consecutive Ironman pursuits, were very different in scale and where the emphasis of pain or confusion came from.
For people who are thinking that this is not healthy, what's your thoughts?
Oh, it's 10,000% not healthy. It's ridiculous. And yeah, we were incredibly out of balance in that time. But the whole concept, and there's some guys talking about this too right now, but the whole concept of like family life balance, it doesn't exist. And in periods of your time, whether you're building a business or you're focusing on your family, like there's going to be ebbs and flows of in and out of balance. The problem is people get out of balance and then they stay out of balance. And that's where it becomes problematic. But for us, it was just out of balance for short periods of time. But no, it's not healthy. And if people look at our career and they're looking at these key moments, they're like, man, dude has no balance and doesn't respect recovery. The reality is, our training philosophy has everything to do with recovery. In my personal training, I'm big on recovery. I mean, I do 8-9 hours of sleep a night. These guys that are preaching 4 hours of sleep, screw you.
Yeah.
You're gonna burn out and die. I don't care who you are. There's a few that fuse is gonna burn out. We prioritize sleep. I have a hyperbaric chamber at my house. I do red light therapy. I do uh, acupuncture. I do massage. I mean, you name it, I prioritize it. I spend a lot of money on self-care. I mean, it's the number one thing. We supplement, we eat well. There's just so many things that we do to prioritize health and recovery.
How's your body holding up now? Like, are you back into training or are you,
Yes.
where are you at now? Yeah.
So we're actually coming up on the 3-year anniversary of the start of the 100, and it took me that long to recover, both physically and mentally.
Wow.
Um, I- this is another hour podcast, but um, my brain got stuck in fight or flight. I couldn't get to parasympathetic, and so I had to go to cognitive therapy to rewire the neurological pathways of my brain and retrain my brain. But that's an incredibly important point. Is like, I don't care what your past history is. Take the time, energy, and effort to rewire, rethink, reprogram this guy. It's so important. Everybody has a financial plan, a physical plan, a nutrition plan. What's your mental game plan? What are you doing on a daily basis to strengthen your mind? If this is our most important asset, why are we doing nothing with it? And so I recently had a new brain scan done to where I went from having one of the worst brain scans they've ever seen to having no signs of PTSD or concussions. And that's because of 2 years worth of work on my mental game plan. And I'm finally to the point now where I feel totally normal. I'm completely invigorated. I'm fired up every single day when I wake up. I'm turning 48 this year, and I'm going to do some physical things that are going to be PRs in my career over the next 2 years.
When you're 48, you do not, for those who are watching on YouTube, you look like you're bloody 28, man. Investing in the health. I'm a big fan of the red light therapy and those recovery protocols. But James, for people who want to, I want to respect your time. For people who have been inspired, they want to continue following your journey and they also want to see what other, I guess, life PRs you're going to hit over the next couple of years. Where can people find you?
Yeah, I'm most active on Instagram and Facebook. Iron Cowboy James is the handle. Everything is on our website, ironcowboy.com. If you DM me, it's me or my daughter that are active in there every single day. Uh, we're both running our page. Um, you can tune in to when the documentary is going to come out, when the book is going to come out. You can sign up for our retreats, our mastermind coaching. our triathlon and racing coaching. I mean, we do so much and we want to give back. We try to make everything super affordable. Those programs are not how I feed my family. I do that through my speaking, through corporations. And so we just want to really help people. If I've learned anything as I've traveled around, I've been fortunate enough to speak on over 50 different countries around the world.
Wow.
And everybody's is just stuck. They're losing the conversations with themselves. In fact, the number one question I get is, how do I become more mentally tough? And it's through having experiences. It's participating in life. It's about doing that so you can find your passion and get closer and closer to happiness, in fact, joy. And in order to do that, you have to show up in life. You have to take accountability for where you're at. I said this in a podcast the other day, and I'm like, if you don't like where you're at in life right now, it's your fault. And yes, life happens, situations happen that are outside of our control. But the number one thing we all have control of is how we react to what's happening to us. And the economic crash, it happened. The pandemic, it happened. Trauma, it happens. But guess what? I have personal experience that you can reverse, you can rewire, you can change the experiences that you have. The greatest gift that you can give to yourself right now is to figure out how to forgive yourself for the mistakes that you've made in the past, and wake up every single day and understand that you have a blank sheet of paper in front of you. Every single day you can be and create whoever you want to be. If you're an adult, guess what? You can do whatever you want, especially if you live in the United States. Nobody's putting any limitations on you. You can go do and be whoever the freak you want. And so if you're not doing or being that person, that's on you.
Iron Cowboy, everybody. I'll have all the links in the show notes, and definitely check out the retreats. I'm going to look at the San Diego one for sure. I'll be back in the country, so I'm pumped about that. Mate, this has been a really inspiring conversation. I'm glad we got to make it happen.
Awesome, man. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Man That Can Project podcast. My name is Lachlan Stuart, and I hope you enjoyed this episode and found it helpful. If you did, please take a moment to rate and review the Man That Can Project on your favorite podcast platform. And don't forget to subscribe to stay up to date with our newest episodes. We'll see you again next time.